What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Sanity Symphony Podcast, where your story is our soundtrack. And today, we have a special guest who is currently celebrating the release of his latest album called Hennessy and Her, which is available on all music streaming platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Inphamus Amadeuz. How you doing, bro?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, man. My pleasure. So we're going to get into some questions on who you are, how'd you get into your career, and a little bit of your album as well.
I bet.
So before the music and before your career and your journey, who was the Inphamus Amadeuz?
Kid from the Bronx, born and raised, in the 80s, 90s. I was heavy baseball, like super, super heavy. I played for a while. I played probably till maybe I was 18. And then as I got older, I converted over to softball. That was kind of like my thing. You know, it's funny. I play MLB The Show every day. That is like my the only game that I buy every year. And I play it every day. And I do it before you hear me on the radio, before I go to New York, because I don't have to entertain people, I gotta play MLB The Show for like 2 hours. That's like my Zen time. That's like my Zen time. But yeah, I mean, you know, for the Bronx, I mean, obviously I'm older now, so you know, I'm a husband, I'm a father. Um, obviously I'm a radio personality, entrepreneur. Um, but yeah, I mean, you know, I was just a kid from the projects with a dream. And the dream wasn't rap. That was not even the goal. It became that later on as I got older, once baseball faded out. But yeah, that's kind of like the story.
Now, what was your introduction to hip hop? And looking back to the earlier version of yourself, how did it impact you emotionally?
Yeah, so introduction was Joe Public. It was a song called Live and Learn. It is not like a very well-known record. It's a New Jack Swing record from the 90s. So, you know, I saw it probably on MTV or maybe Video Music Box. I can't remember where. And it was just a bunch of guys on the side of the highway. They were like playing the drums and the guitars. And I'm like, yo, this is dope. And it wasn't in theory a hip hop record. I guess you would consider it more of an R&B record, more like a new edition. But at that time, that was the sound. Like hip hop and R&B didn't really have like a difference. You know what I'm saying? So like as an example, like, you know, Adina Howard, a Freak Like Me would sound like a Naughty by Nature record because it's all the same type of instrumentation. You know what I mean? So that was definitely my introduction into the music, and my introduction to becoming a lyricist. I used to write Pac's lyrics down. So I used to go and like in school and just write all the lyrics down. That's how I learned how to formulate bars through Pac. And yeah, here we are. You know what I'm saying?
Speaking of Pac, I read on an Apple Music article that you've mentioned All Eyes on Me, The War Report, and Illmatic as three albums that have impacted you. So what did
Yeah.
they provide to you psychologically at the time when you discovered those albums?
Word. Well, Illmatic, it taught me how to be descriptive in life. How to be descriptive, how to, you know, get my ideas together and make sure that I articulate it directly, especially as being a journalist, you know what I mean? And talking on the radio, whatever. So, you know, be very descriptive, be very detailed. All Eyes on Me teaches you about format. You know, so it's like it's almost like an essay, like All Eyes on Me, like it's like your intro, then it's your paragraph, it's your body, and then it's your outro. And the War Report taught me to be authentic. You know what I mean? Because if you listen to the War Report, like they weren't the best rappers like ever on the CNN War Report, but it was organic. It was just like the homies like going and they just recording a project, and the shit came out so far because it was a level of authenticity that the game is missing. So that's kind of like what I took from all of those projects that I applied day to day.
And then once you started your career, what was the grind like behind the scenes when nobody was watching or validating it?
Sheesh. You know, the Sirius XM grind was complicated. And one of the reasons why it was complicated because I was with someone that people may not particularly like. You know what I mean? So that complicated that, and I kind of feel like I'm still, you know, I still kind of go through that shit to this day because you know I'm so attached to someone. You know what I'm saying? And That's my brother for life. So I'm always gonna hold it down. But at least it's serious. I think that was like the most difficult thing. You know what I mean? Because if they don't if they have a misunderstanding of one person, it's like you, Anthony. They look at you a certain way. Then I'm standing next to you. You just automatically gonna assume that I'm like that without even taking a chance to get to know me. You know what I'm saying? So on the radio side, I think that was the most difficult thing. Um, on the music side, it was just the adjustment once the like the auto tune and all that shit hit because it just changed the way that people consume music. You know what I mean? So, you went from like a real bar boom bap-ish, even like a party type of vibe with East Coast melodies. And then now it's just like all robotic. And now anybody can sing. Now the BPM changed. Now we're going from 90 to 71. You know what I mean? So trying to reconfigure and figure out where you fit in that space was a super adjustment, me getting to where I am now, because that was the learning curve, like trying to figure out like, okay, where's music going, because it changed so fast. So where do you fit in this space? You know what I mean? And luckily I was able to figure it out.
And was there ever a time you were feeling like a burnout was creeping in? And if so, how did you like recognize it before letting it take you over?
A burnout for me happens every day. You know what I'm saying? Because you're in charge of it. People only see the glorification on social media, when your platform's doing so many views. But you're a father, you're a husband, you're dealing with personal shit, and then you're also a leader. You know what I mean? So it goes back to like what I was saying about like the MLB the show thing. Like that's kind of the way that I make sure that I don't burn out, by giving myself a separation from whatever my reality is for that day. That's the unique thing about sports, right? Like, if you play basketball, hockey, or whatever, when you start playing, you're only worried about that. You ain't really worried about nothing else. You know what I mean? In hip hop, especially as a leader, like when you're in the point position or performer, entertainer, like you have to entertain so many people. You know what I mean? And that shit could be a burnout. Like I had a crazy weekend. You know what I mean? Friday was my anniversary. Then Saturday we had the Hennessy and Herb release party. And now I'm like, I'm staying home for a week. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm burned out, I'm tired. Like, you know what I mean? But it's always the goal at the end of the day that keeps you moving and keeps you motivated. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you see results.
No doubt. And you mentioned being a radio personality, having your own show. What made you focus on uplifting independent artists instead of chasing industry approval with the Punchline Academy?
Um, because I understand they struggle. So I understand what it is to be an undersigned artist. I know what it is to be an up and coming podcaster, and interviewer and television show host. And that's really what Hennessy and Her is about. That's why I made this album, Hennessy and Her. Hennessy is obviously my favorite drink, but Her is hip hop. And I'm just talking to hip hop as if she's a female. You know what I mean? And hip hop in my situation is, that's my passion. But in somebody else's situation, whatever it be, you could be an electrician, you could be a mechanic, you could be whatever. You know what I'm saying? Her is that for you? And then it's the complicated relationship. Like no matter how much drive you have or how much talent you have, it's the betrayal with the passion. You know what I'm saying? Or the overlooking. Like, damn, I've been working all this time and I'm still getting overlooked. Or how did this person pass me when they didn't even do shit? You know what I mean? And that's kind of like what I'm talking about on the project. Just the love hate relationship that you have with your passion. And that's one of the reasons why I continue to do what I do for independent artists, because I understand what it is to be in their position. And I wanted to give y'all a body of work that reflects that.
I was getting ready to ask you too the meaning behind the title Hennessy and Her, but instead, what would you say inspired that title? Because there are songs from other artists who are in the industry, like J. Cole with "I Love Her Again," and
Yeah.
Eminem's "25 to Life," Tupac "Me and
hmm
My Girlfriend." So, what inspired you with that song or that title with the album?
Um, so yeah, it was just well, I come from like a party promoting background. You know what I mean? So I had a party on Mondays for like 5 years. It was called Money Machine Mondays. You know what I mean? And it's the rollout of the title. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you have a party on like Sunday, it's like Sinful Sundays. Or like, Tasty Tuesdays. You know what I mean? So that was more important for me, for like the rollout of the name to kind of roll off. So it's catchy. And then obviously, you're not gonna. I wanted to give the audience that perfect marriage of hip hop and R&B that I think we've been missing in general. Like it's not only boom bap. I think even in melodic ways, it's like very rare. Like you could kind of count on like one hand how many of these type of records that you had. You know what I mean? So I wanted to create a body of work that was for public space where you could play like a lyrical record in any space, but also give y'all that nostalgic feeling while also giving you a message that people can relate to. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's about love, it's about happiness, it's about fighting, it's about all that shit. You know what I mean? And just wrapping it into one. And at the end of the day, sometimes like, when it's all said and done, all you got is your drink and your passion. And a lot of times you gotta go home to that shit. You know what I mean? And it's just y'all two.
I can relate to that 100%. You, like I mentioned on the Punchline Academy one time, my personal favorite is that tequila Terramana.
Yeah, that Terramana. Yeah, so it'd be Terramana and like whatever your passion is. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. And
Yeah.
my personal favorite track off the album is Left Lane Action, Ride With Me. So could you speak on your creative process on that song?
Yeah, yeah. So Left Lane Action is one of the songs on the album that is not specifically about hip hop. There's two of them basically on the album, but yeah. So just in a nutshell, it's about you about to get head in the left lane. You know what I'm saying? It's literally about like my brand. If you listen to me on the radio, it's like left lane, throw the easy pass, so that you hope you get top in the left lane. So it was I did a description of like from the time that like you meet up with a shorty, she get in a car, y'all vibing in the car, you have like this like fire, like old school like R&B type of record, you know what I'm saying, where it was more singing and rapping. And then my verse ends when you about to get topped in the left lane. And then the singer proceeds to thank her for not wasting your time. You know what I'm saying? And it's just it's like my version of like Biggie fucking you tonight. Like that, like it is a very vulgar record, but I thought it was needed. You know what I mean? And that was actually the record I had the most fun with doing on the project because I had to push my creativity. Like, okay, the goal is obviously her as hip hop, but how do I do it in a way where I can still stay truthful like the average female? You know what I'm saying? Or like the average guy who's like want to have a good time and they could just listen to something like that with they shorty.
Yeah, man. And I also noticed, I felt like that could have been something that was a little out of your element. Like you weren't used to making those type of songs. And the
Yeah.
fact that it came out great, I feel like you should keep on with that type of style one day.
Thank you, man. Yeah, that was definitely not like honestly like the majority of the songs on this album was not like songs that I would typically make. I have a bunch of I actually got the idea from a caller. Like a caller had said, I was like, if you should probably do like a greatest hits of just all of your R&B ish type of records, like lo-fi ish records. Because if you listen to my work, I always have like one of two of those songs on a project. The rest of it is pretty aggressive or it's like storytelling. So like, you know what? Let me just put a record I was gonna do like a greatest hits at first, and I said, nah, let me challenge myself. Let me create a whole new body of work. You know what I mean? And here we are.
No doubt. To the viewers out there, I highly recommend that song and listening to the whole album all the way through, all
Thank
bangers.
you, Robert.
Yes, sir. And you've also been married for 21 years. Has that
Or
shaped the way you move in the industry that's constantly pulling your time and attraction?
definitely, it's easier now that you're older. Like now that I'm older, because when I was younger, you can be a little ignorant, and guys are ignorant too. Like the younger, like you're hothead. So a lot of times, like when you're younger, people be trying to test your temperature. You know what I mean? Now that I'm older, it's easier to move around and to deal with it. But it does shape your temperament. It gives me a lot of respect for women. Being married for 21 years, I also have two daughters. You know what I mean? So I look at women a lot different. Like even in the workspace or it's like an artist space, a lot of times women will compliment me because I'm not trying to fuck them. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not trying to get in your pants. Like you got balls, I pull to the Punchline Academy, and most of the time you see me, I'm with my wife anyway. You know what I mean? So that shit has definitely helped 100%. Like the way I move and how I operate on a day to day basis.
Respect to that. And shout out to Miss Get Adam out there.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Word.
Is there any moments on the album that came from real conversations with you and your partner that have had like the connections or distractions or coping through life through ups and downs?
Definitely. So across the sky, across the sky, that is literally like about my relationship with my wife. So that's track 9. You know what I mean? So that song is literally about that, about my relationship. And then the single Close to Me is also about it, but in a different way. You know what I'm saying? And it's not nothing that happens right now. I like to write songs about moments in my life. You know what I mean? So maybe there's a moment where you end up having a tussle. You know what I mean? Because like of a miscommunication, I'm like, you know what? Let me write something about this. You know what I mean? And talk about that. You know what I mean? And it's good to express it because I think the average person, that goes through their shit will fuck with it. You know what I mean? It's like, damn, I know what it is to just have miscommunication. You know what I mean? How am I supposed to hold you close if you're not close to me? It's a miscommunication. You know what I mean? And a lot of things could be solved with just communicating directly, not only with your wife and with, your friends and all that shit. You know what I mean? So yeah, those two songs definitely are a direct reflection of my marriage.
No doubt. And how did you decide what emotional arc this album should have?
The majority of the album, it has a lot of frustration on it. You know what I mean? I mean, at least I think. I mean, I can't listen to it from a third party perspective, but like track 5, Link Up, is very like aggressive. It's very aggressive. Even Breaking the Rules is aggressive, and that's how I spun it, because Breaking the Rules, I am married, so it's almost like wrestling. It's like you're blurring the line, like you don't know who is he talking about exactly. I'm talking about a marriage. Now I'm married to hip hop as well. You know what I'm saying? And I'm talking about that frustration as well with that. You know what I mean? So I think the tone of some of the records are pretty aggressive. You know what I mean? And they sound fun and playful, but I'm just addressing the issues that I think are at hand. You know what I mean? Of the underdog. Like, I did this really for the unsigned community. You wanted to. They see me all over putting artists on. You know what I'm saying? And a part of doing that is speaking out for y'all. You know what I mean? And that's what I did on the album.
Yes, sir. And what do you hope listeners get out of listening to the album after one full listen?
I hope that if you're an artist, I hope that you don't become afraid to create music for public spaces. You know what I'm saying? Like, enough of trying to sound like Griselda or whoever you trying to sound like. Let's make music for the barbecues. Let's make music that I could play at a venue or brunch or like in the car with your lady. Like, stop making music like you don't like women. You know what I'm saying? Like, facts. Like, a lot of artists, that are doing like this boom bap shit, they're older. Like, you're not selling crack no more. You know what I mean? And if you're gonna talk about it, be past tense about it. You know what I'm saying? That's what, at least on the artist side. On the listener side, it's more about them seeing that I'm trying to lead by example. You know what I'm saying? Look, I'm giving artists advice on like what I think they should do. And it's not like I'm just telling you to do it. I'm doing it myself. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I hope that the listener gets out of it as well. And hopefully they get some inspiration. They get a vibe, and let's see what happens. You know what I mean?
I agree with your message because I've been noticing like in interviews recently with people in the industry that they've been saying it's embarrassing to hear rappers in their 50s still talking about street stuff when you could be like Tony Ayo says eating smoked duck in Morocco, you know?
I
So
mean, I don't get it. I don't understand why they still choose to do that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but if you're gonna do it, talk about it in past tense. Like, you're not spinning the block on nobody at 49. Like, you probably got a mortgage, a cat, and a dog. You know what I'm saying? Like, We got to start making like music for our age group. You know what I mean? And I have a unique perspective because I'm able to interact with the audience in real time. Like a lot of people, you're looking at numbers on Spotify, you're looking at numbers on YouTube. I have the experience where I could play something and then watch the audience interact immediately right there on social media or immediately call in. You know what I mean? And this is what they want. So let's feed them. Let's give them that shit, that knock.
I agree 100%. And when people talk about the Punchline Academy years from now, what do you hope they say it gave into hip hop beyond exposure?
I hope they definitely got that Stretch and Barbito vibe from because the root of the Punchline Academy starts from me wanting to bring that vibe to Lord Sear show. So that's literally where it comes from. It's like it's a conversation that we were having before. I was kind of, I was on a show with someone who felt outcasted and outed by his peers. You know what I'm saying? He was on a show with someone else. The show broke up. They put him by himself. I'm like, I'm looking at the frustration of it. I'm like, you know what? Let's bring this vibe back in. So you know what? Let's do a cipher. I highly encourage you guys to go check out Serious Cipher. My name wasn't on it, but that was the beginning stages of the Punchline Academy. And a lot of guys that people follow now, from OT to Real to Lola Brooke is another artist. Like mad people that came through my cipher, but that's where it stemmed from. It stemmed from having that organic, like, fuck all that punching in and all that. Here's the beat, go. You a rapper, rap. You know what I mean? And I hope that people see the authenticity in the Punchline Academy as well.
I also recommend to the viewers out there, check out the freestyles on YouTube and the SiriusXM app as well. Cause man,
Yes,
my
sir.
favorite freestyle is Freeway when he rapped over one thing. Man, that was
Oh yeah,
nasty.
Freeway went crazy, and that wasn't even planned. Like I wasn't even supposed to have him. He just did Sway in the morning, and his manager saw me in the hallway, and he was like, "Yo, if we're gonna stick around, because he got his boys, he want to put his boys to rap. They call like the Freedom Thinkers Academy or whatever." So he stood around. That was fire, classic.
Fun fact about that day, I got to speak to Freeway that day also on Sway in the Morning.
Nice.
I asked about his experience getting to be on a song with Jay on the 8 Mile soundtrack because that was his
Yep.
first time getting that big exposure like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was fire.
Yes, sir. And one couple last questions. If you
All
could
right.
send a message to your younger self or the next generation of hip hop heads that's trying to like build something for themselves, what
Mhm.
would you want them to understand about patience and purpose?
So to my younger self, actually, I actually when I was younger, I noticed something when I used to walk down my neighborhood. I grew up in the Bronx. This is the crack era. So this is like the end of the Bronx is burning into the 90s, right? And I used to walk down my neighborhood and I would notice that none of the businesses were owned by the quote unquote white man. Because remember, when you live in the hood, it's like that is how you're taught to reference rich dad and poor dad. It's like people of color and white people. You know what I'm saying? And I would just notice, I'm like, wait, but the laundromat's owned by a Korean. The pizza shop is owned by an Italian. The Jamaican spot is owned by this Jamaican lady. And that was the bodega's the Dominican guy. And that was the first time that I realized that the only one that blocks you is you, because the world is out there for you to get it. You just gotta see past it. And that's something that I would definitely tell anybody. And I'm only bringing that up because if I had to think about one thing that I would tell my younger self, it would be that. But thank God I noticed that early on. You know what I'm saying? And then as far as hip hop goes, I think we gotta stop being so judgmental on what it is that we expect the world to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, people didn't like the 90s rap shit. You know what I'm saying? My aunt used to tell me, like, yo, fuck is this Nas or this Mob Deep? You know what I mean? And, for her, it was KRS-One. Before that, it was the 70s era. Like, it's always going to be whatever's reminiscent of your childhood. You know what I mean? I just wish the kids would make better music, like longevity type of music, with like, some sort of like substance type of thing. But I don't think it's in any of our place to judge anyone on what type of music they listen to. All you can do is lead by example. So, that's kind of like the advice I'd kind of give to everybody, not only the kids, but the adults as well.
I agree with that. And I also had to come to that realization as well, like once I started getting into my mid 20s now. So I agree
Mhm.
100% with that. One last question I ask all my guests at the end of every interview. During times of low moments or you just having a rough day, who's that one artist you turn to nowadays?
New artists or like older artists, or
Either
does it
one,
matter?
doesn't matter.
Man, my favorite artist is always Pac. So Pac for me, I just think that he has the most balanced music catalog to go with any type of emotion. You know what I mean? So it's Mother's Day, you could throw Dear Mama on. If somebody pissed you off, you could throw Hit 'Em Up. As soon as I hit California, I can hit California Love. Or Live and Die in LA. Or like if I want to talk about old school, he got a record called Old School. You know what I mean? So I think Pac is that one artist that I could put on. Like I'm like, all right, let me express myself by hearing something else. You know what I'm saying? Definitely Pac, 100%.
Is there a favorite album of his?
I mean, All Eyes on Me is probably his best album. I personally like Machiavelli. Because I think with Machiavelli, he was like foreseeing the shit that was about to happen to him. In what like whatever reason. Like, you could tell that he was paranoid and you could tell that he was rushing. You know what I mean? Like he was trying to get somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So I would say those two. If I had to pick between the two, I would probably go with Machiavelli though.
That's dope, man. Shout out to Pac and rest in peace to the legend for sure.
Word up.
And where can people reach you if they want to check out any of your content or anything from the Punchline Academy?
No doubt. Yeah, so the Punch-Out Academy, Sirius XM, Shane 45, every single Wednesday, 9 p.m. EST, 6 o'clock on the West Coast. Of course, my YouTube channel is youtube.com at the Inphamus Amadeuz. We can catch me, Tom Vieira, and Mrs. Get Adam professionally minding our goddamn business. Follow me at the Inphamus Amadeuz on all platforms. You know what it is, man. Stay in the left lane, baby.
Yes, sir. Always in that left lane. And that concludes another episode of Sanity Symphony Podcast, where your story is our soundtrack. We want to thank the infamous Amadeus for taking the time to be on here and sharing his story. We hope you can be inspired, resonate, and share this story along with others as well. And let us know in the comments what one of his moments are your favorites or you could relate to. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.